You're listening to a social justice podcast, an exploration of our world's social issues, brought to you by NES Design and Construction and hosted by Nicola Spurling on the traditional and unceded territories of the Kwikwetlem, Katzie, and Qayqayt peoples. Hello, this is a social justice podcast. I'm your host, Nicola Spurling, and today I'm joined by Aphrodite Janeway for a conversation about the intersection between capitalism and disability. Aphrodite, can you introduce yourself more thoroughly, please?
I hope so. I'm Aphrodite Janeway, as was said, and I am a disability advocate and a sex worker advocate and a full-time trans woman living in Vancouver. Today, I'm looking forward to talking about the intersection of capitalism and disability.
I'm really excited for it. And some of you might have met Aphrodite from our previous episode on sex work. And you are our first returning guest, so thank you for joining us. For those who don't already know you, I encourage you to go check out that previous episode. And this one is going to be somewhat a continuation of that. We did touch on disability a little bit in that episode, but it's also going to be much more a conversation about that intersection between capitalism and disability. And this is Pride Month as well. So since this episode is airing during Pride Month, how are you celebrating this month? Maybe we can just start off with that, and maybe you want to share what Pride means to you personally this year.
Well, I usually do most of my Pride celebrating next month.
Mhm.
That's when most of our events are, right? Like,
Yeah,
isn't
I
that
mean,
when ours kind
exactly.
of
We live
is?
here in
Yeah.
Vancouver, and our Pride weekend, I guess you could say, is August, and then there's the Trans March and the Dyke March that all happen the same weekend as well.
Yeah, which is so convenient. Good thing I'm only one of those things, right?
Mhm.
Um, uh, they're great to go to. I love going to those things. So certainly there will be some of those that I'll be attending. I don't usually attend the official Pride stuff. What with corporations and all that, and police being there generally. So I usually celebrate in my own way. Um, and yeah, this month kind of falls to the wayside for me. I try to save up all of my energy and money for next month.
Yeah,
And then
it is a
I'm
lot
really gonna go
this year.
wild. Yeah, yeah. Well, and like if we participate in everybody else's pride and our pride, then I'm basically celebrating for 3 months, which is great. So which is kind of what I do, but also that means that it's all more spread out and it's less focused. One of the groups I follow, people are doing their pride makeup and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I should be doing that because it's like pride and stuff. But
Yeah.
oh well, we'll see.
We have plenty of time to do all of that.
Yeah.
And you've talked about navigating capitalism a little bit, I think, in our last episode, and obviously working in sex work as someone with a disability and using that as a means to pay for whatever needs to be paid
Food,
for. Yes.
rent.
Yep. All of the important
Yeah, yeah,
necessities, right? So
medication. Mhm.
can you maybe paint a picture of what a typical week looks like for you and maybe what some of the biggest structural barriers are for you?
Well, certainly the biggest structural barriers for me are monetary. Um, I, I actually have no money right now, for example, what with rent coming out just the other day, until I get paid for this cycle. And luckily, very fortunately, this pay cycle, isn't until the 25th, I think.
Hmm.
Uh, Yeah, so that means that I get to go. Let me just count real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks without getting paid.
Well, that must
Uh,
be difficult.
oh yeah, and of course they don't compensate. Like it's not like they give you more for the extra month. You literally just have to do the same amount with less, a quarter less, arguably, a fifth, a quarter, whatever. It's a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah, they recently restructured their payment schedule so that it happened less often, but it still happens. And again, there's no compensation for that. So,
Right. And we're
um,
talking government disability, this sort
yeah,
of amount that you get that is not really enough for anyone to live off of. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, $1,500,
Hmm.
um,
And that's a
and
month?
per month, yeah, once per month,
Hmm.
also. Although I technically because I am also on uh uh CPP disability as well. That is paid out separately, but it's usually paid out even later in the month than disability. So I'll usually get disability. on a normal month, I'll get my disability the second to last week in the month, and then the last week of the month I'll get the CPP. Um, they forced me to apply for that. I'm required by British Columbia by provincial law to apply for it. And when I first applied for it, I was like, "Oh, great! Uh, I worked and earned myself a pension, so I get to receive some extra funding." Um,
Mm.
so I thought I was going to get like $700 on top of the $1,500 I get in my disability, and I'm like, "Oh, I'll be able to live." But no, they claw back the $700 that I get from CPP. And this was my favorite part. It is also taxable because, of course, we're living in a capitalist society. So I have to pay income taxes on my disability payment, even though I'm living below the poverty line. And if I had paid that $200 in taxes, would represent, in some cases, orders of magnitude more taxes than people significantly wealthier than I have paid.
Wow.
Uh,
It also seems
so,
like
yeah,
quite a headache to have to go through when you think about it, like, the government gives you money and then makes you do a bunch of paperwork to give them back some of that money that they just gave you, like, surely
yeah. Well,
there could
and
be a
I have
system
to
in place to avoid that.
absolutely. I also have to pay a corporation to help me file my taxes because because I am also a sex worker, my taxes are complicated.
Mhm,
Now I have the audacity to be both disabled and self-employed, which is how most disabled people employ themselves because the regular working world is very hostile to us and our existence.
mhm.
Um, so, uh, lost my train of thought.
Oh,
Shit.
take a moment if you need it.
this I did well, and indeed, this is a great example of my disability. I this happens a lot, and what can I do except for flounder? And uh, sometimes it comes back, sometimes doesn't. You
Mhm.
know,
Did
whatever.
did you
That's
wanna
life.
share what your disability is, or we don't have to talk
Uh,
about it
you
either?
know, like we've by medicalizing our disabilities, like we put them in these boxes and stuff. So I was diagnosed officially with ADHD, and that's and anxiety and gender dysphoria, um, and depression, and it's the ADHD that disables me. It is the part where it is too difficult for me to interact with the larger capitalist system and structure that causes me to be unable to support myself.
Right.
Um, like, uh, uh, I have in fact had many a conversation recently about maybe finding a job because the economy isn't doing very well, and sex workers usually feel it first. Um, there is in fact a stripper index, which measures the health of economies, and it is most very often the first indicator of a retracting economy. So I knew months ago that we were heading towards a recession. Um, long before the election, like like almost 2 years ago. Uh,
Mm.
anyways,
And did you have to go
mm,
through that whole process as well? Because I recently just got an official ADHD diagnosis. I was, I guess, sort of diagnosed before, and I was prescribed medication, but it wasn't an official diagnosis. And so now I have an official diagnosis, which apparently allows me to get a disability tax credit and apply for disability if it affects my life to a certain extent.
enough.
And there's a bunch
Yeah.
of criteria, and you have to get a psychologist to sign off on it and your doctor to sign off. There's a few hoops that you would have to jump through.
Oh,
I'm not at the stage of
absolutely.
doing that yet, but is that something you had to jump through a whole bunch of hoops to get to that
Oh
point?
yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And it is extraordinarily difficult. They make it so hard, unnecessarily hard, because of course, God forbid, somebody who gets money that doesn't deserve it. Even though there's tons of wealthy people out there making much more money than they deserve.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I had to do all of that stuff. I had to go to the Kettle. Big shout out to the Kettle, one of the greatest local entities helping disabled and queer people in our city. Um, they helped me apply for disability. I also it also requires a GP, which you'll note a lot of people don't have access to.
Right.
Um, and overall, like, it's complicated. When like as a matter of fact, this is a great example. When filling out the paperwork, it's tempting to be like, well, it's not. I'm not really that bad. It's not that bad. Most of the time, some of the time, 40 to 50% of the time, 60% of the time, I'm able to act like a normal person. I wake up on time. I can brush my teeth. I can shower. I can make myself food. I can go out. I can socialize. I maybe probably could even work for like a normal work day. Um, but uh, but that's not all the time. Other times, I am completely unable to do any of those things. Sometimes I'm not able to make myself food or have a shower, or go anywhere, even to do things that I want to do.
Mhm.
Um, and in my situation, as somebody who is, of course, underpaid via disability, uh, the only way I can supplement my income is by working, which only further exhausts me because even though it takes more energy for me to work. I put in my 8-hour day, and my 40-hour week, and I'm, like, twice as tired as somebody else. So, do I get, d what does my weekend look like? Like, my weekend, doesn't look like, I can, certainly doesn't look like some of the people's weekends that I look out there with, like, soccer practice and children, and laundry and doing the yard and decorating the house for the season and things like that. I'm lucky if if I have a shower and see a friend. Um, and to me as a social person, there is nothing more important than seeing my friends. So uh, I'm working a lot for very little. And it's isolating me from the things in life that I really want to do.
Right.
Uh, and, uh, and that's where we starting to get into the complicated nature of dysfunction and how it interacts with capitalism. Because on the one hand, people can be inherently disabled. From the extreme, like missing limbs, or chromosomes, to or extra chromosomes, I suppose,
Mhm.
um, to mental issues, such as myself. Each of which, depending on the society you live within, can be varying levels of disabling. If you need a wheelchair to walk, and your society is like, fucking curb cuts, those are expensive. Fuck those. We're not going to spend money on those.
Mhm.
Then you have an entire class of people who not only have to spend money to survive in the society, but also cannot contribute to that society.
Mhm.
As somebody who likes to contribute to society, I find that very frustrating because there's nothing that I would love to do more than participate and contribute to my society. But the way the society is structured makes it significantly more difficult to do so. Everybody's always telling me about how smart and charismatic I am, and they're probably correct. But it still doesn't pay the bills, right?
Mhm.
I still struggle with the anxiety of depression, of homelessness, and of I gotta ask my partners for food, and I gotta ask my mom for gas money, and I can't rely on our public transit because, I don't have the energy available to coordinate getting on the bus on time. I also just plain old can't afford the bus. But fortunately, I can pay the disability people money for them to give me a discount disability pass, but they still take money away from my monthly income to do that. It's not free,
Right.
you know.
All these things
Uh,
that, a lot of people wouldn't be thinking of if they don't have a disability themselves, I guess, right?
and it's even hard for me to remember. Like there's so many little things that are just like that add up and make it more difficult.
Mhm.
More to the previous point, when it comes to the need to fill out all of this paperwork, this is like the neoliberal aspect of disability. The idea that we need to like prove how disabled we are, prove that we need help, prove that we can't afford things, and then after the fact, they'll be like, "Oh, Okay, well, I guess we'll give you a little bit more. Never enough.
Mhm,
Never means tested. Or sorry, not means tested. Never cost of living tested.
mhm,
Just like it is in fact means tested. It is always in fact like, do you deserve this? Think of a person in a wheelchair. I'm in the disability advocacy groups, and I constantly see people in there like, "Hey, anybody have a line on a discounted wheelchair? God forbid if you need like an electric wheelchair." Like the government is just like, like, do you really need it? Are you sure you couldn't use something cheaper, like a cane or something? And people with no legs are like, no, I really couldn't. Those people shouldn't have to deal with that. They should just get a wheelchair. They should just ask for one and receive it because it's what they need to improve their well-being.
mhm.
And from a neoliberal point of view, when our needs are met, we can then contribute to society instead of exclusively being a drain on it, which
Yeah.
is, of course, in and of itself, a capitalist way of looking at us.
Well, yeah, and like you said, there's sort of different societies. There's even within capitalism, there is a difference between how different countries operate, or different even regions within countries. And
Hmm.
there's this idea that we have in Canada. I know the U.S. next to us has this idea as well, where you have to file taxes and you have to pay a company to help you file taxes, and
Yeah.
other countries will just the government takes care of it all for you, and
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about it. The other thing that you mentioned is that there's this desire to be a contributing member to society, and to give back
Hmm.
to society, and um,
Hmm.
I think that's pretty common amongst folks. Like, no one just wants
Yeah.
to sit at
Absolutely.
home and do absolutely nothing. They want to be able to
Yeah.
contribute to their communities, and I think for that reason, people like myself support concepts like universal basic income, where
Hmm.
everyone just gets a basic income, and you're still going to be driven to want to work or contribute in whatever other way you're able to contribute. But at least everyone has that safety net, and they're not out there sort of having to prove that they need this money, or that they're disabled enough to receive this money, because it's just universally applied to everyone. Is that a method that works? I imagine if you are disabled
Oh
and you
yeah.
can't go out and work in addition to that UBI, maybe that's not enough, and maybe there needs to be a system in place in addition to that. But is that maybe one step to get us into a better place?
Absolutely. Like at its most basic level, the stress of being poor, and not even of not only of just being poor, but the stress of if I lose my job, I could be homeless. I could lose my health care coverage. What? How am I going to take care of my family if I lose my job? These kinds of things. That all it takes energy and effort to manage that stress, and that is in fact lost productivity, where we could be, where I myself could be contributing to my society in meaningful ways, in ways that are available to me. Like physical labor isn't that great for me, but I can do a lot of other things. I'm pretty charismatic. So I can explain things and talk to people and otherwise just, contribute to society in literally whatever way I can. That's actually one of the most fundamental aspects of being human, is this desire to live in a community. The secret power, the reason that we can put humans on the fucking moon and in space is because we decided to all work together. Uh, and our what is it? Neil deGrasse Tyson, not my favorite, but still says something smart every now and then. He said that like our nearest ancestor has like what is it, 8% different DNA than us.
Mhm.
Um, and he says that 2% is, planes and underwater exploration and landing on the moon and establishing nations. But it turns out that that 2% is really socializing. The concept that each of us is part of a community, and that we ought to support the people in our community, because when we support the people in our community, it makes our lives better too. If you grow the grain, I can go do something else other than trying not to starve, and that is the accumulation of knowledge and the spreading of knowledge and so on. So,
Right.
uh,
Well, and I guess in that vein, when you think about people who are providing for their communities, you think about, or at least in our current society, we think about the people who provide the most value to our communities. And we really place a lot of emphasis on who's doing the most. And I don't think
mhm.
there's necessarily a clear definition of what the most is or what the best is.
Yeah, yeah.
But pride campaigns, coming back to the fact that we're in Pride Month right now, will often
Hmm.
spotlight, for instance, 2S LGBTQIA plus entrepreneurs and success stories, as you might say.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
how do you feel when Pride branded corporatism overlooks disabled and sex working community members in that way?
It doesn't surprise me in the least, that's for sure. Nothing could surprise me less. Uh, corporations have always been fair weather allies. They go where they think the money is. And this has been the problem since the beginning with rainbow capitalism.
Right. With maybe
Um,
like a few exceptions in there that I can think of. But yeah, I think by and large, you
sure.
see a little bit of pushback against
Yeah.
corporations participating in Pride. They see their bottom line
Hmm.
changing and they go, oh, better pull away from that. We saw that with Google,
Yeah.
we saw it with Toyota,
Or
where they got rid of their EDI
yeah.
programs, for instance.
Yeah. Or they pay lip service, where they like TD, where I went to a pride parade that they were in, and then the next month, I think, I got my name changed stuff, and it was so difficult for me to change my name with them.
Really?
Um, yeah, and beyond that, though, since we're talking about disability as well, they also offer absolutely no assistance for disabled people whatsoever.
Oh.
If you're poor, like me, and you can't afford to keep more than $500 in your checking account, like me, you have to pay them a monthly fee.
Hmm.
For what? Why? Why do I have to pay them that? Are they not making enough money? Why is our banking system a place that we are supposed to store money,
Hmm.
a profit for-profit endeavor? It doesn't make any sense. Further causing them to do weird and silly things like showing up in a pride parade, where they pay lip service to our people and offer very little in terms of meaningful assistance towards us. How many queer people have I seen working at a TD? None.
Right.
Of course, I don't go there anymore. I'm sure that's changed, but I
Well, and
still
also, I mean,
that is in
it's a
charge there.
write-off, right? You talk about the fact that the banks are for-profit corporations, and
Yeah.
so they have tax write-offs, and they can say, well, we're going to donate to a bunch of these organizations in order to
Mhm.
use that as a tax write-off. But I think banking is a really good thing to touch on when we're having this conversation about capitalism. And you mentioned why are they for profit? And under a capitalist society where there are these independent organizations that need to be able to sustain themselves, with some exceptions, there's like Van City, for instance, is a cooperative.
Mhm.
So there's that model, which
Mhm.
can operate in a capitalist society like ours. Is that the model you think all financial institutions should operate under, or are you thinking more in terms of, in order for those not to be for-profit organizations, that they would be government controlled, for instance?
I think the profit motive needs to be removed from every single aspect of our lives. Because I think that this desire for privatization, while searching for efficiency, the assumption that privatization is efficient, is just false. Uh, it, it, it fundamentally cannot be efficient because you have to pay people extra all along the way, just for them to profit. They're not even fairly. It's not like the people who are actually doing the work are taking a piece of their labor in money.
Mhm.
People above them are arbitrarily being paid additional money, disproportionately extra money. It doesn't even make any sense how much extra. They're not working that much harder than all of these people. Ge-
Mm.
Generally speaking, these things should be everything. should be owned by the worker.
So would
You know,
you
like
say then that the corporate structure in general is akin to a pyramid scheme?
oh yeah, almost definitionally, like the people at the top make the most money and do the least, and are the most shielded from both legal and even individual repercussions,
Hmm.
uh, unless you know someone named Luigi.
Well, speaking of Luigi, let's talk about healthcare for a second. So,
Hmm.
what do you
Oh,
think
I
are
love talking about Canadian healthcare.
well, Canadian healthcare, I mean, healthcare in general, this is something that people with disabilities are involved in,
hmm
I would say more so than the average person.
hmm
And
hmm
I'm curious
I
to know
also lived in
what,
America for 14 years.
right, with, I mean, healthcare in America is way off the deep
Uh-huh.
end, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of the hidden costs or bureaucratic hoops that you would face as a disabled person, maybe even as a trans person, both for transition related care, if you want to go into that, but just for everyday accessibility needs?
Uh, yeah, that's a big topic. So first of all, I recently heard one of my favorite Canadian political commentators, Steve Boots, point out that here in Canada, we do not have free health care. We have free health insurance.
Mm,
And that is an extremely astute observation, and explains why I am forced to pay so much of my own medication. As a matter of fact, I find that almost none of my medication is covered. Indeed, none at all whatsoever, not a sausage of my HRT is covered.
mhm.
Um, and most of my psychiatric meds are also not covered. I managed to get both of them covered thanks to special authority, but that was only after like insisting weirdly, uh, and the fact that special authority does not work for any of my hormones is the definition of insane. There is no logical sense there. What are the reasons given? Usually monetary. Why is my estrogen not able to be covered by special authority, even though it is clearly related to my mental health? Ask a trans woman. Ask a trans woman who's been denied their estrogen
Mhm.
how her mental health is. The reason being that because there is sesame oil in it, which is a consumer good, they are not able to cover it for some. I don't.
The
That's yeah.
valid
That
reason.
yeah. I know. I know.
Do you also
So.
find with ADHD medication, so I haven't experienced this yet because until recently, I haven't been taking my ADHD medication on a regular basis. So I've been able to sort of accumulate it between refills. But I've heard from other folks who are on ADHD medication that when you go in to refill it because it's a controlled substance, they won't do it
Mm.
early. So
Oh, yes.
basically, you have
That's
to
right.
go in the day that you run out to get more.
Yeah.
That seemingly creates a huge barrier for someone with ADHD because
Oh,
doing
yeah.
these types of things within that type time period like that is one of the most difficult things you can do when you're struggling with
Yep.
ADHD. So is that like a huge barrier that you've run into as well?
Yeah. Yeah, medication refills, speaking of things that could easily be automatic, but are not for no good reason, that, um, I find that, uh, I did manage to get my doctor to, put on my prescription that to dispense it after 24 days,
Mm,
so that I can, in fact, uh, so that I have more than just, like, a day, to remember to refill it.
right.
Um, yeah, so that's something. Um, oh, uh, that reminds me though, for no reason, about the disability tax credit, uh,
Right.
because we were talking about, that before. The thing about the disability tax credit, is that it is a federal, disability tax credit. Where all of the stuff we've been talking about before with disability is entirely provincial. Even CPP is provincial. Um, so now we are getting the federal government involved, which is fine because the provincial governments are obviously not capable of handling this problem. Um, so the federal government has been mandated by this new law that they need to pass. what did they call it? The Canada Disability Benefit. So complicated, very creative. Um, yeah, so that was approved recently. The law is designed and in fact is written to state that one, it is required to bring us out of poverty, uh, which many people will note that it does not do,
No.
and that it's not supposed to require any means testing, and it's supposed to be immune to clawbacks, amongst a few, other good stuff. Um, the federal government implemented none of that. So it is currently $200, which you'll note is nowhere near enough. The $700 now. Is it up to 800 now with inflation? Dollars short per month I am of minimum wage. Not to mention a living wage. Uh, Usually I break it into 3. There's the minimum wage, the suggested minimum wage, and then the actual, living wage. So 17, we're up to 17 something, and then $25 is the current proposed minimum wage, which is $10 short of $35, the actual cost of living in Vancouver.
Right.
Um so, so obviously, that's nothing. And then you have to apply for this federal disability tax credit, which essentially requires you to apply for disability another time, just this time for the federal government. You can't just be like, "Oh, good news! I already filled out a whole bunch of paperwork and am currently receiving disability for being disabled." So indeed, you have to fill out that paperwork, and it has stricter requirements. Fewer people are approved for that than are approved for disability in BC, uh, which is of course, uh, stupid and capricious.
Right. I know I keep kind of coming back to some of these queer linkages because,
That's
as
fine.
I mentioned
Please,
at the
please
beginning,
do.
it's Pride Month, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to sort of have these two conversations coexist in some way. But can you maybe share a moment when solidarity within queer or sex worker circles has made a tangible difference in managing disability related challenges? Like, is there this
Oh,
community effort to support each other there?
absolutely. The disability community, despite being so poor, does such a great job of supporting itself and each other. And sex worker community, not so much.
No,
uh, uh,
it's more
uh,
like a safety thing, maybe in terms of
yeah.
yeah.
Usually in sex worker community, it's more safety and information. They tend to think if you're poor, it's your fault.
Mm,
Which is pretty ridiculous because there's again nothing more sensitive to the health of the economy than sex work. Um, it feels every bump and trough first.
right.
Um,
And you
I
kind of talked about that in terms of, sex workers thinking, well, if you're poor, it's your choice. But have you encountered other aspects of ableism within those communities, like just sort of on the flip side of the previous question?
Yeah. Especially within the sex worker community, I find there's definitely there's actually a surprisingly large amount of disabled sex workers, which is what makes it so frustrating. All of us, but we're disabled first, right?
Mm,
Even if sex work is our primary source of income, that's the kind of the defining factor of our lives is often in order our disability and then our queerness because they are also often queer.
right.
Um, so, uh, I don't want to sound like too much of a bitch here, but there are definitely really privileged sex workers out there that just don't get it. They
Mhm.
do not understand the privilege that they have access to. They think they're working harder than us, and that's why they're doing so well. And it is not, the gifts God gave them.
Right.
Um, which is,
And
that's a dice roll, everybody gets to roll those dice, and that's just the way things are, so I don't blame them for it, but it would be nice if they looked out a window.
right, touch grass or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. What is it like for other people out there? I don't know. Oh, well.
right. Let's have some passion for people who have different situations in their lives.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and you mentioned previously not going to Pride because of that police presence. I know Vancouver Pride has had some conversations around that. I think I'm not exactly sure where they stand at the moment, but there
Yeah, me neither.
are no police marching in the parade, from what I understand.
That's
It
good.
They're in huge debt this year, and maybe the whole thing's
Yeah,
gonna look very different, but,
yeah.
all of that just to bring up the question of, police in general, and
Fuck
what
'em.
your thoughts are in terms of their impact on people with disabilities, how they interact in that capitalist structure, and what a different, solution to, I guess, the issue of, I guess police are supposed to be, out there fighting crimes and solving murders, and, the things that we don't want to see in society is
Yeah.
how do we not see that stuff in society and also not have these issues with police?
Well, keeping in mind that I'm a huge fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, fuck the police. They are a drain on our society. They are dangerous. They possess the monopoly on violence, and they do not wield it responsibly, and they wield it uh, to protect the state and property, not to protect people. They are not our friends. They do not help us. Uh, every dollar spent on them wastes $4 that could have been spent on prevention. So, um, if we were to reduce their budget, like right now, the budget is like this, right? Like this is the police budget, and this is literally all other social services.
Oh, I think
Uh, uh,
33% of my property taxes goes to the police.
yeah, 33%. Yeah. So like, if we were to just like swap those overnight, the differences in our society would be incredible. Indeed, what drives most people to break the law? I break the law for money, for work. Technically, it's a gray area, but it's still, not fully legal.
Mhm.
Uh, and why? And it is because I am desperate. I have no other choice. Most people would not want to steal or hurt other people to survive, because that is not society would not have gotten here if that truly was humanity at its most basic uh, uh, level.
Those things
We
wouldn't
know,
exist if people had their needs met, right? Like, who's going out
yeah,
and stealing food if they have enough food on the table, kind of thing.
exactly. I'm sure there would, maybe there'd be a
It might be a
couple,
little bit, but
but but at that point, it doesn't matter. Like we're talking about a radically different society in that case, where
Mhm.
everybody has everything. Even the business owners have enough. Somebody stole 1%, 10% of their stuff. That's fine. The they they have everything they need.
Right.
And uh, like when it talk, there's two states, right? There's the transitional society where we're on our way to leaving behind capitalism, and then there's the ideal communist society, moneyless, stateless, borderless, blah blah blah. So we're not there yet. I don't even know. I can't even imagine what it would look like really, because I've spent my whole life living. Not just within capitalism, but even in these hyper-capitalist colonialist nations.
Right.
The propaganda is strong. It runs deep.
Mhm.
So,
Well, we've had
uh,
these conversations a few times on the podcast too, and I
yeah,
think no one has an answer. No one can say this
yeah,
is exactly what that society looks like,
but
the perfect
yeah,
society. No one
it's
knows
hard
what
work
that
and
looks
it's
like.
iterative. To build a good system, you need to iterate on that system.
Mhm. I think it's a fun thought exercise at least, and a
For sure.
useful one because
Oh
if
yeah,
if the goal is to create this systemic change, we need to know at
yeah.
least the direction that we're trying to move in, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the first couple of times communism was attempted, they were really just stabbing in the dark. Like literally, the first book was written about it, basically, and that book doesn't even apply so much anymore because, like, where are the factories? They're
Mhm.
mostly gone. So So indeed, we need to figure out some other way of funding our society and uniting our society. Uh, not wasting money would be a really good start.
Mhm.
So defunding the police, excellent plan. I guess you can't just do it overnight. But like Ken Sim talking about hiring all those additional police officers. Thank God well, but he didn't lose the election because he wasn't running. But there was a pretty strong indicator of people's approval of his ideas during that election.
Mhm.
Um, so, uh, ugh, there it goes again.
Oh, it happens. I had a question, it's just poof, right out of my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. What there were 3 parts, of this question as well. What were the other parts?
Oh gosh. Well, it was kind of around how policing practices intersect with disability,
Right, right.
sex work.
Yes.
Um,
I wanted to talk about that for sure.
yeah.
Because, first of all, as it relates to Pride, of course, the first Pride was a riot against police officers who were oppressing us and arresting us for being trans and for being gay. So let us not forget that.
Mhm.
Um, and, power to them for sure. Rest in peace, Marsha P. Johnson, and the other girl's name. Anyways, like those are people who defined our movement, and they are one of the key reasons that I am like, police have no place in our society.
Mhm.
But also, certainly as they interact with disabled people, they can be terrifying. I date. I have a couple of autistic partners, and I worry about them. They are not so autistic that they, are acutely likely to be shot by the police, despite being innocent people. And every time a police officer shoots somebody, it's murder. There is no justification for it, even if they do have a weapon, because they have not been judged yet.
Mm.
We don't understand the circumstances of them having that weapon, and to just fucking murder them is an outrage, which none of us should ever tolerate. Just because that person may or may not have been autistic doesn't shouldn't really change anything. It's scarier knowing that a that an autistic person could just through just consistently misinterpreting what's going on, get murdered by somebody, and apparently, according to the state, justifiably. To
Well,
what end?
yeah, I mean, just recently, obviously, with people being autistic, we hear about police going to someone's door to deal with a quote unquote disturbance, and it's an autistic person who's struggling, and just through a series of, whether it's miscommunication or misreading the situation or whatever, end up getting shot by the police for no good
Mhm,
reason. There
mhm,
are other situations as well with people who have disabilities being impacted by police behavior. For instance, I recently saw a video of someone who was paralyzed from, I think it was the waist down. They were driving a car and obviously had the hand controls and all of that, so they were able to drive. The police officer said, "Get out of the car." They said, I'm
Right.
sorry, I can't physically get out of the car," and the police officer didn't believe them and dragged them out of the car, I
Oh
think
my
caused them
god.
injury
Yeah,
and
yeah, of
arrested them
course.
for this thing they have no control over. There's also an instance of a police officer pulling a gun on someone for having, a, uh, I don't know the correct terminology, but it's like a folding cane that you use for walking when you
Mm,
can't see, and
right, yeah, yeah.
so they had this in their back pocket, and even after realizing it wasn't a gun, still w arrested this person, had their gun drawn on them. So there's all sorts of
Mhm,
situations, it seems like people with disabilities are being negatively impacted by police in ways.
mhm. And that's representative of the role that police play in our society. The police are not here to protect us
Mhm,
uh, at all. They are not mandated to protect people at all. They are mandated to protect property. That is their first and oftentimes only requirement. Um, and that's terrifying.
Mhm.
We all assume that they're here for us, and this is a conversation with I have with my mom as well. And she brings up the cliches like, "Well, what am I going to do if I get raped?" And I'm like, "Well, what are the police going to do if you
Mhm.
get raped? They're going to show up tomorrow. They're going to ask you, what were you wearing? Were you drunk? They're gonna ask you, if you got a rape kit done, and whether you say yes or no, the rape kit will probably never get analyzed. May not be the case in Canada, but it is certainly in the case in the UK and the US.
Mhm.
Rarely are rape kits processed within an accurate period of time, or with any effort.
Yeah, I dealt with that situation myself. The last time I called the police thinking I could get help from them, I called them up and I said, I've been stalked, harassed, doxxed. Can you file criminal harassment charges against this person?" And they just said basically, "Suck it up and deal with it." Like
Yeah,
they did
yeah. Once
absolutely
they
not.
actually try to murder you, then we can do something about it. Yeah.
Right, like, they just inflamed the situation even more, and,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
obviously, that's gonna be a personal bias that I have, but I can't trust them
No,
from that
it's not.
experience.
It's
Um,
it's correct. That's the
I mean,
rational way to feel.
I think it's correct for me, it's correct for you, it's correct for a lot of people. There are people who are very privileged who probably do have good experiences with police, and they do help those
Sure.
people, and again, it comes back to, okay, well.
I used to be a white guy living in Florida. I've had many, many, many positive interactions with the
Mhm,
police. I'm also very charismatic. Almost every interaction I have with the police is positive.
right.
Uh, but uh, that doesn't change the power. That doesn't change the attitude. That doesn't change their role. That doesn't
Mhm,
change what they are here to do. I did have one opportunity, one situation where I called the police, and the second they showed up, I was like, "Well, this was a terrible idea. This was a
mhm,
mistake. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna shoot them? Are you gonna shoot my partner who's having a bad trip? That's not gonna help."
mhm,
Like, uh, not even the ambulance people can really help, but at least they're not, like, walking into my apartment with a gun.
right.
Now there's 3 handguns in my apartment. Uh, why? For
Yeah,
what?
that's
They
not what you need in that
I know
situation.
this is a controversial opinion, but they should die. Like, if they are walking in somewhere that they don't know is safe and they're worried about their safety as police officers, they are the ones being paid to put their life on the line and to take that risk. And that's fine. That's okay, but that's not what's happening. They're paid to show up, panic, and murder somebody.
Mhm,
And then with the state's assistance, and the state's money, our taxpayer money, be acquitted, or receive a slap on the wrist or time off with pay. And they do nothing positive for our society, uh, ever.
mhm,
Even when it seems like they are, the fact that the police needed to show up at all is still an indictment of the society that we live in, and the consecutive failures that occurred, the consecutive ways our society and community failed them over time, over and over and over again, to put that person into the situation where now they have been shot by a police officer
right.
because, who knows? They were
And
scared or
I mean,
whatever.
I think we're talking about a lot of situations where we're we're obviously in agreement when it comes to police not being helpful. There are other situations where just for the sake of the audience in particular, I think that I should probably play a little bit of devil's
It's your audience. I'm just kidding.
and,
It's
well,
not my
right,
audience.
hopefully I had a good pro-police
But no,
audience,
I'm
but,
just kidding. I'm
um,
just kidding.
but there are obviously instances that people are going to bring up, such as, okay, someone was murdered,
Mhm.
and what are we gonna do about that?
Do you need a
And
handgun to investigate a murder?
no, I'm not saying that, but
Yeah.
who
Yeah, yeah.
does the investigating if not the police?
Yeah.
And what does that
Well,
investigating look like? And also in a situation like maybe a group of people are being held hostage at gunpoint, who do we get to resolve that situation?
I I have a normal solution and a crazy solution.
Okay, I
Um,
wanna hear 'em both.
like I'll try to remember them both. I'll start with the crazy solution. The crazy solution is it would be under communism. First of all, the situation that would how often does a hostage situation occur that could not have been prevented had our society been healthy? Uh, Pretty rarely. Even can I say that on the podcast? Even America deserved 9/11. Americans did not deserve 9/11.
I will
Not
leave
the
that on the
individual.
podcast, but that month, I mean, that one's going to be
Hassan said it first. It's my ringtone. Uh, but indeed, the individual people of America certainly did not deserve it. But did America bring it upon itself by funding Al Qaeda, by specifically under the reason they were specifically fighting communism because the Russians were there, and they were so worried about the Russians, they were like, "We should go find some rebels, that hate the Russians, and then we'll give them a whole bunch of money and weapons and training." And they did that. And that is how Al Qaeda had the money and technology and experience necessary to attack America.
Mhm.
While America was also killing their friends and family. So like, what do you think is going to happen? They created the environment and the situation that brought about that event. Had they not been so greedy and so worried about communism and so concerned with oil and all that kind of stuff, that circumstance almost certainly would have never come around.
Right. And I mean, I think you're absolutely right that there are situations in our society, like, how many thefts are going to occur, like violent thefts, I should say, because we're talking about violence. How many of those are going to occur in a society that is providing everyone with their needs, and
Uh-huh,
in a
uh-huh,
society that functions better? And there are obviously going to be way less tensions between countries if everyone is acting in people's best interests and stop, they're not being greedy and all of
uh-huh,
that. If
uh-huh.
somehow we were able to manufacture this idyllic society where, maybe it is communism and people are all getting along, is there not still going to be like a percentage of the population that, is uh, just inherently violent, or that is just so inherently greedy that they're going to want more than everyone else regardless? And like, do you think that that would just be completely eliminated, or would there still be something of that nature, just to a much, much lesser extent?
It seems impossible to suggest that it would be completely eliminated. Um, I genuinely don't know,
Mhm.
obviously,
Well,
and
none of us.
there is no way to know,
Mhm.
obviously. But like, uh, you know, the I feel like the easiest example here is like a serial killer, for example, because there is usually no motivation beyond satisfying this need, right?
Right.
Um, uh, I would preface this by saying, if we had things like a functioning healthcare system, and our society didn't glorify violence so much, and uh, you know, desperation, stress, anxiety, fear, putting all of that aside, I still think that would really, really reduce the amount. Like, you can even tell when when a child is going to grow up to be a serial killer.
So, like,
And if that,
community awareness would help to
yeah,
prevent
and
that, or
we there's 2 kinds of psychopaths, right? There's the bad psychopaths that hurt people, and then there's the good psychopaths that help people because that's what they want to do. They may not derive, the same type, or the same amount of, uh, pleasure from it. It feels good for me to help my friends. Not as well as knowing mechanically that it is good to help my friends.
Mm,
It is absolutely possible to train a psychopath to be like, hey, it just kind of sucks to hurt people, and it's just kind of better to not,
right.
like that. Absolutely. Do I think that would further reduce the likelihood that there was a serial killer? Yes, like you can look at the combination of genetics and environment that causes the serial killers that we know about in the past. But this one slipped through the cracks, right? Uh, sure, I could imagine some sort of investigation, like group. Detectives used to be a group of people that existed and were generally unarmed and generally lived within the community that they were a part of. So like they generally knew the people around them that were coming to them for help. So it's not just some Jamoke got murdered. Is that's not a racist term, is it? I hope
I don't even
not.
know the term, to
I
be
have no idea. It's just every time I use one of those words, I'm like,
where did that
you know,
originate?
it yeah, where did it originate exactly? What's the etymology of that word? Hopefully it's okay.
Mhm.
Let us know in the chat. Um, and, but I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? Can you recall for me?
Detectives not being
Mm,
armed, being part of the community.
mhm. Right. The key part there being that again they tend to be a part of the actual community that they are serving. Their purpose and function and the philosophy that like when you wake up in the morning and you're a detective is fundamentally different than waking up in the morning and being a cop. It's just like Terry Crews says on Brooklyn 99. I am a detective. I will detect. And, because that's his job is not to shoot people. It's still a cop show, so there's still that kinda shit in there, but,
I mean, I
um
just miss shows like The Wire and The Shield where you could really see that no one is
mm,
good in those, policing situations. Everyone has,
yeah.
major flaws, and probably everything would be better if they just didn't exist.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's propaganda too, because then like you're seeing, you know, the law getting in the way of justice. And
I mean,
what you need is a cop to just slam the suspect's head on the table. I've never seen either of
right, a
these shows,
vigilante or
so
something.
yeah.
I mean,
So I don't
I
know what these shows are actually like.
they're just kind of a lot more gritty than I think policing shows
Mm,
are today, because I
that's
think
fair.
that propaganda has gotten worse and worse as time progresses, and police are getting involved in like funding these types of shows, and they don't like the way that they're portrayed as being unethical, but like even if they're working towards this common positive goal, they're doing it in the wrong ways. Like it's still not portraying them in the best light, and so now those shows are completely devoid of reality, of emotion, of interest, and they're just purely about promoting police. But
Mhm.
I think, we've talked quite a bit about policing, and we've gone into a lot of sort of hypothetical situations, and I don't know how valuable that is. Maybe it'll get the audience thinking. That's
I
hopefully
think
what
I
we'll
think
go.
it's good. Like, it's an undeniably complicated issue, especially given the central role that policing has in our society now and has for such a long time. Um, it took a lot of listening, in fact, for me to really learn and understand the problem with police in our society. The thing is usually I feel safe, and I with a police officer around. And the fact is that that is an illusion.
Mm,
Uh, that safety is a total fabrication. And after having a couple of experiences where I was like, yeah, this could easily go a really different way.
right.
If my partner, during their bad trip, was yeah, a person of color, uh, how would it have gone? I certainly never would have called the police in the first place. But
Right.
like, but there you go. What greater indictment of a system is that? To be like, I wouldn't even bring my partner uh, to a bank because I'm afraid they might get murdered. Like this is
Mhm.
a totally different section of risk and so on.
Right.
So yeah, fuck them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think speaking about systems, people, let's use Republicans in the U.S. as an example. They might look to Canada and say, "Wow, you live in a socialist system,"
Yeah,
and they equate that with communism, right? So
yeah.
they view Canada as like this socialist communist country, and we would. go, okay, not really, like, we're looking at this other country and we're gonna say that they're this socialist communist country. And what that means is kind of a little bit twisted because even a communist country is dealing in capitalism, and even a capitalist society, we're dealing with socialist systems like, I mean, I guess policing is a socialist system to some degree. Like, we're all helping to fund it for some sort of common goal that we don't necessarily all agree on. And the fire department and the ambulance and the healthcare system and all of that, like, we're,
Mhm,
some might call it a socialist system because we're common, as a group of people helping to
mhm.
create this. um
Yeah, yeah.
but if you sort of look globally, are there policies or grassroots models that maybe provide mutual aid networks that you think in Canada here we should be adopting to help better support disabled people? Are there things that we're doing well, maybe even that you want to highlight? What kinds of systemic changes do you think are attainable for us? Because obviously, just flipping that model from capitalist to communist, that might be a lofty goal, but it's not necessarily like a realistic short-term goal.
Yeah. Uh, it's tough. Certainly there's other, like, usually the way other nation like, here's how I want to approach this. The problem is in identifying, disabled people as a separate group of people, and specifically trying to help specifically them
Hmm.
without of course, without actually trying to help them. If they were just like, "These people are disabled, we should give them enough money to live," that would work. In a neoliberal society, that would function well enough.
Mhm.
Then we could contribute, blah, blah, blah. One of the most interesting things that I've heard about recently, is, the way, Vienna, controls their housing market, because, of course, one of the reasons money is so important for me, is because I can't afford to live, where I want to or move or anything like that. I'm stuck in an apartment that I can touch the ceiling of when I do this.
Mm.
I don't even have to do that. I have to
Right.
kneel down if I'm gonna finish my jug of milk. Um, and it's still $600 a month. So, the city of Vienna, sets 60%, of the housing, in a region, that has been identified to have, inflated housing costs. Say for example, East Vancouver. That means that the government would set the rental prices. Just imagine this, right? Imagine hearing this on the news tomorrow. The government is going to set the prices for 60% of rentals in the entire Hastings Sunrise area in an effort to lower not only those rents, but the rents around it as well.
Mm.
Because now uh, and what is that doing? What is the mechanism that is being pulled? Is the profit motive. Like, who was owning those buildings before? Were they corporations? Well, now the corporation isn't able to make any money. Corporation has no incentive to own the building anymore. Corporation sells the building, hopefully to the people who live in the building. And there you go, genuinely a simple solution to what we over here view as this huge, systemic, impossible, intractable problem. How are we going to build enough homes? How are we going to lower the rents enough? How are we set the prices? And it is by specifically identifying what the problem is the profit motive has created a bubble because the people don't have enough control or power. So the government steps in and forces equity.
Right.
Um,
Well, and the longer that we go without taking, and I maybe that is the action that needs to be taken, but without taking any action, the higher
mhm,
prices become. Because
mhm,
I've talked about this a lot. Don't know on the podcast, maybe in my personal life, but the fact that rents keep going up and mortgages keep going up at a rate that's higher than inflation is just completely
yeah,
unsustainable. Eventually, you have to
yeah,
reach a breaking point, and once you reach that breaking point, it becomes really difficult to then drop it all the way back down to a point that's sustainable because the more you have to cut value out of property, the more people end up basically having their lives destroyed because
Yeah.
you're someone who's like just scraped together enough money to finally be able to buy a place for yourself and you think, okay, I'm finally secure. And now it's worth 50% of what it was before. You're like,
Hmm.
oh crap, I've just lost like hundreds of thousands of dollars and I don't have I can't afford that. And that's great
Yeah.
that someone can now hopefully rent this place because the market has come down, but also there's all these ripple
Well,
effects that
and I mean that's just another example of the profit motive causing huge systemic problems.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Housing is a human right. It's a necessity. Without it, your odds of disability skyrockets.
Mhm.
Like the stress and anxiety and raw health implications of literally living on the street in a capitalist society, no less, are pretty extensive. So, furthermore, housing should not be a investment vehicle.
Mhm.
For years, when I was in high school, like 20 years ago, one of my teachers was like, "If you want to live a secure future, the best thing for you to do is buy some land." And especially living in Florida, quite a few people did, because land was really cheap back then, especially there. But also by virtue of me being a high school student, I couldn't do that.
Yep.
Capitalism has created it creates a lot of fear and anxiety, and people don't like that. So they tend to do literally anything they can in order to mitigate that. And that includes hoarding resources,
Mhm.
and like housing and money, uh, and toilet paper, uh,
Right.
and that's just like, and it's bad for society, but it is a normal reaction to the false scarcity that capitalism puts upon us.
Right.
Um, so we shouldn't do that.
Right. Well,
It would be better if we didn't.
yeah, absolutely. And the other thing capitalism does is it loves to create these productivity metrics like, do you have
Hmm.
worth or don't you have worth? What is your value?
Yeah,
And all of those things also impact people's mental health, right? That creates that anxiety. Am I doing enough? Am I
yeah,
creating enough value? Am I going to get fired and not be able to support myself? And all these
yeah.
types of things. And that
Am
can
I a
affect
failure?
yeah, yeah, exactly. That can really
Yeah.
affect your perception of yourself, your self-image,
Mhm.
and, is that something that, when you are dealing with disability, for instance, 'cause we're talking about this overlap between capitalism and disability, is that something that really has an impact on, someone with a disability's, feeling of self-worth, that they're not able to provide this value that they think they should be providing?
I actually think, I've been reflecting on my own situation, and, who knows? But I feel like that might be central to, most people's, mental health,
Mhm.
disabilities. Um, the, uh, it's distressing. It feels bad, to feel like you're a drain on society, like you're, um not contributing in the way that you feel like you can. I have a note about this. Let me check. Hold on a second.
Yeah, go for it.
What was the question again?
So we're talking
Mhm.
about the productivity under
Yeah.
capitalism, this idea of self-worth, how that affects people with disabilities. Like, I know for myself,
Yeah.
ADHD, it's not preventing me from being able to work and provide that type of value that people think is important. But when I'm at home and I'm thinking, well, I need to do all of these chores, and my mind's like, no, you're going to sit in paralysis and not do a single thing.
Yeah.
And I go, well, crap, I feel awful about myself because I'm not being productive enough. It's not necessarily that these things have to be done for the sake of my life or someone else's life. It's just there's this idea that I always have to be productive, and if I'm not always being productive, something's wrong with me. I'm not doing what I need to be
Yeah.
doing.
Absolutely. And that's very much the neoliberal point of view towards ability and disability. Um, In fact, my note here says, and this is, by the way, heavily based on Revolutionary Thoughts YouTube videos on this topic.
Okay.
So special thanks to her. Her videos are so good. Um, so neoliberalism brings the idea that systemic problems are actually individual, putting the blame for homelessness, poverty, disability, mental illness, unemployment, and environmental degradation on the person. Neoliberalism bans plastic straws without dealing with the underlying causes of pollution caused by plastic, and in practice puts even more pressure on the populace, further exacerbating disability and further forcing us to spend money to overcome the limits of our abilities. This is why everyone, from my doctor to my mother and even myself, keep looking inward at a way to deal with my disability through managing my own behavior and habits and thinking, instead of admitting that maybe I'm just different and don't fit into this neoliberal society that we have created.
Mhm.
We prescribe medication, which generally I do approve of and think is helpful. Um, but the thing that I feel like I need a prescription for is $600 a month, not ADHD medication. With after the $600, it would be interesting without the stress of like, what am I going to do for the next 5 weeks of my life for money? Without having to deal with that, um, uh, maybe then my ADHD medication would be even more effective because I do often struggle with the effectiveness of my ADHD medication.
Right.
Uh, so, uh, neoliberalism is a foot on the brake of disabled people. It is based on the fundamental assumption that people who do not monetarily benefit society are a drain on society, unless a great deal of math comes into the equation. Is it worth it to help this person? Is it financially feasible to help this person? Does this person deserve our help? Or are they just gonna spend that money on drugs? Things like that.
And if tomorrow you could redirect one major capitalist flow of money, so whether that's like sponsorships for corporate pride, like we talked about earlier,
Mm.
where would you channel that money instead? Maybe it's, funding for police. You talked about defunding the police. There's
Oh,
money being
yeah.
put into things that maybe you don't agree with currently, systemic structures, and I wonder how that could be redirected to be more effectively spent.
Every time, something is done for profit, instead of for what needs to be done, is an error, and is doing damage to, our society and each other. So sure, like, we could take the money from defunding the police, and, like, let's just jam it right into disability. Uh, uh Done. Or, let's do something similar. Let's take police funding, and put it into UBI. Maybe we'll roll disability funding in there too. Why not? And EI and all those other, welfare and all those systems. All that funding can just go
Well,
into
and the
one
thing is,
one
you wouldn't
place.
need all of these systems and, you wouldn't be spending tax dollars on
Yeah.
on, the bureaucracy of having all of these different systems if you had something like UBI because you
That's
could funnel it
that's
all in one.
true, and I definitely think that, like, obviously, anybody who interacts with the bureaucracy can tell that the bureaucracy, is expanding to meet the expanding needs of the expanding bureaucracy. So, like, for sure. However, I there's definitely money to be saved there, but is it a lot? Not really. It's not as much money as it seems,
Mhm.
by combining all of these things, and that's not really the point. We got tons of money. Canada is a wealthy country. The fact is that we are not taxing the appropriate people in the appropriate amounts.
Oh,
Most of the tax burden falls on the lower class. The next highest tax burden is on the middle class. The lowest tax burden is on the upper class, and that should be inverted tomorrow. And if that were to happen, then we would like uh, as it is now, we could maintain our current standard of living with 30% of our productivity. So that means that 70% of our productivity is just going into the pockets of wealthy people and corporations.
and so, these numbers are coming from, the corporate structures and how money is funneled to the people that you're working for instance, or where's that coming from?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a statistic I heard a while ago from Hassan. Like if you measure uh, uh, the amount of what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, like I don't want to say productivity produced.
GDP?
That seems yeah, but I guess that is ultimately what the GDP is. So yeah, fair. But also including things like wages and also like um resources pulled out of the ground and so on. Like there's an extraordinarily large amount of waste is the point. 70% of our productivity is wasted on both going into the garbage in the cases of or on average across all of the various industries. Um, so like the amount of energy that we need to produce, the amount of raw resources that we need to consume, and so on. And then, which is of course all at some point because we live in a capitalist society turned into money. And then that that part, that is the 70% that is being wasted by going to people who already have uh, extra money. Um, yeah. I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't have any more detailed information on that because I heard it a long time ago and it's just stuck in my head since then. But it was also like 2 years ago, so the numbers may have shifted, but they've probably gotten worse. Uh,
Get involved,
uh,
chat.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's get a
Like for
conversation going.
for example, our wages have remained flat since the 70s, adjusted for inflation and the cost of living.
Haven't they gone
Um,
down if it's adjusted
uh,
for inflation?
I think it's flat,
Oh, okay.
because we are getting raises,
Yeah,
but
I
it
just thought
also
the raises hadn't kept up with inflation. Like, I thought if you adjusted
correct,
the average wage
correct.
to 70s for today, it would be, like, 3 times higher or something.
Yes, that's correct, but that's because they didn't raise the minimum wage for several years. So, like, like, if you look at union work, you can see where, wages should approximately be,
Mm,
which is in, like, the 30s to 40s,
gotcha. Yep.
range. Because their wages, are mandated, are required to stay with the cost of living,
Mhm.
not minimum wage, but the actual cost of living. Um, and our wages have remained flat. I've worked at multiple computer stores. I even I've worked all over the place.
Mhm.
I've always been paid minimum wage or slightly above it. Um,
I've also heard
and
that the cost of, uh necessities has skyrocketed, whereas the
oh,
cost
yeah.
of, like, extravagant spending or unnecessary spending, has come down, so,
Mhm.
in essence, like, your housing is, 3 times more than it would have been 30 years
Mhm.
ago, for instance, but you can now take a plane really cheaply and fly across the world,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so, like, there's been a shift in terms of, uh
And that
percentage
shift
partners
hasn't
on
been
the word.
equal either.
No.
Like, yeah. So indeed, we find that not to go all communist on you, but we find that our excess labor is indeed being stolen from us and hoarded by people who own the means of production, whereas we, the people who are actually doing the labor, do not.
Mm.
And like I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this recently. I'm a relatively new communist. I like my communist tattoo is fresh. So like, uh, it's still taking. I'm still realizing the different ways that things affect and impact us. Uh, and I forgot where I was going with that.
Welcome to neo-communism, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess. Indeed, the goal being, uh, that, we ought to own the means of our production, and, in doing so right, that's what I was gonna say. In doing so, the it every aspect of our lives would change, specifically because we then have the power and the control to decide how our lives go. Right now, our lives are determined by by a select few, the capitalists who own the means of production. They determine when we have to go to work, how much we get paid, like, every aspect of our lives, what we're allowed to post online, the color of our hair, the shoes we wear to work, the tattoos that we have, and the drugs we do when we're not at work. And all of this is just just capitalism stealing our joy from us, and our society, and alienating us from ourselves, from our friends, and from our family, and from our community, and from our work, and so on. Uh, by From our work in particular, sorry to go on, by insisting that we do menial tasks that mean nothing to us, as opposed to doing meaningful labor for people that we know and care about in our communities. Uh, and I'll stop there.
Um, well, I'd be switching gears a little bit from obviously capitalism, communism, back to that disability aspect. What are
Yeah.
some myths about disability that you think we should retire?
Okay. Uh, Certainly the idea that that we cannot contribute to our society. Um, or that we are faking it.
What?
Or that we don't deserve how much that we get, which is of course outrageous. Um, but I think most of all, like the things that I want people to understand is that we disabled people love contributing to society. It's great. Um, Especially since so many of us are so dependent on our community. There is nothing better, no better feeling than contributing to our community.
Right.
Um, and the fact that our society makes it so difficult to do that is really annoying, and I don't like it. um, when I'm doing well financially, I love loaning and giving money to my disabled peers, and it's great. I When people don't pay me back, I don't give a shit. Even if they were supposed to, because what are we doing? We're trying to survive in a society that wants us dead. That would prefer if we weren't here.
Mhm.
And I, much like my queerness, refuse to comply with that directive.
Right.
I will not be erased or forgotten about or dismissed. Our needs are just as valid as everybody else's needs. And we can contribute to society just as much as everybody else. And we want to contribute to society just as much as everybody else.
Mhm.
Um, so uh, help us help our society by advocating for our rights, including equal pay.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something that's come up a couple times on this podcast, which is, low income people, and I'm including people with disabilities in that because of the fact that you get almost no money for
Mhm.
disability.
We
It's
are
not everyone with
definitionally
a disability is low income,
yeah.
but low income people tend to be some of the most generous people you'll ever come across.
Oh, yeah.
It's so interesting that the people who have the least are willing to give the most.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny too because I noticed in myself when I was making more money, that what there's that middle range, where like, I had a lot more money than I had before, but I didn't have tons of money,
Mhm.
where I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, totally buy everything," but once I started to feel like I could accumulate large sums of money I had never accumulated before, I was suddenly I felt the temptation to be like, "Actually, maybe I can anybody get this next round?" "Can everyone buy themselves a drink this time?" A thought I, of course, was repulsed by.
Mhm.
Um, uh, but yeah, I've seen it happen. And
Might not be repulsed by that thought if you hadn't had that experience of knowing what it's like to be
yeah,
low. Right?
exactly. And uh, yeah, exactly. I was very much ashamed of that feeling, given the experience and how how much I know and how familiar I am with the struggle of being poor and just like even asking for help from people who are obligated to help me
Mhm.
is difficult. Uh, and because again, like this is further increasing the pressure on disabled people is the fact that everybody else is also struggling. So it makes it difficult to ask for help because I know that everybody around me is also struggling. Do I want to ask my mom for help? Is it coming out of her retirement? Uh, which one of us needs that money more? I don't know. Um,
Right.
it feels like I need it now. Am I going to regret it in 10 years? I have no idea. Uh, what I shouldn't be having to make these kinds of decisions. I shouldn't be hoping my mom is going to die so that I have enough money to live. Uh, and this is entirely within the control of people in our society, people down the street. The MLA I've talked to has the power to change that. Um, and they're not going to individually, so we as a community need to come together and convince them to do that.
Right.
So be sure to send an email to your MLA and especially to the financial minister. I think you can just send it to uh, like no, I don't remember the email off
Are
the
you
top
thinking
of my
for the
head.
province?
Yeah, yeah, because again, disability is determined by the province.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
it's something like financeminister.gov.bc.ca.
I I think so as well. I'm just gonna look it up
Mhm.
because I send them fin.minister, periods in email addresses are usually optional, but not always, at gov.bc.ca. You'll get an automated reply saying that which says that they are required to read your messages at their uh, 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 meetings for determining funding for things.
Hmm.
So I always be sure. I'm always sure to word them very interestingly.
Mess with them a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And is there
Love getting those calls from the RCMP. By the way, what's like? Here's a great example. Like I threatened myself, and a police officer calls me. What the fuck is the police officer gonna do?
we have that term committing suicide because it's illegal to
Yeah,
oh, like,
that's fair. Actually, that's true. That's fair. That's a good point. Yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
don't
it makes the state look bad is the thing. That's why it's illegal. Because everybody's gonna if I do, and I'm not going to probably. Uh, but if I did, uh, what is all of my email and all of my Facebook posts and all my other social media gonna say? It is going to say that I cannot survive under the amount of stress and anxiety that being uh, paid under the poverty level it has put me under. And therefore, if I do not survive, it is your fault. Because what can I do? In living in a society where at every turn I have to pay money. I had to pay $8 to swim in a pool today.
right.
Uh, it's a public pool. It cost me if I wanted to take public transit, to go see my girlfriend in Surrey, it would cost me like $20. That's not even it, 'cause that isn't it like isn't a 3-zone ticket like 7.50 now? Or
I
8? I think it's $8 now, maybe? It's been a while. Certainly since I've paid, because nobody should have to pay for public transit.
right.
Uh, the fact the fact that they're enforcing that more, is offensive to me.
Yeah. No, I think public transit should be free.
Yeah. Something about all cats are beautiful, that's all I know. That's all I'm picking up.
And is there anything like we're kind of getting close to the end here. Is there anything that we haven't talked about at the moment that you think would be really important to bring up?
I did. I hit that. The last one that I hit, that was important. Very happy about that one.
I'm glad you hit that one.
Uh, Capitalism disables via stress, time loss, alienation from yourself. Yeah, blah blah blah. Man, that's such a good line. So good. Uh, from the break. Right, right. Neoliberalism causes us to end up in a situation where we acknowledge that we need to help people, but don't, because a government with millions or billions of dollars looks at a trans woman's bare chest, because one person looks at a trans woman's bare chest, photos of a trans woman's bare chest, and decides that that girl doesn't need top surgery. But
Well,
then other girls are randomly approved, apparently, for top surgery. Uh, and uh, and trans men are universally approved for top surgery, which is good and appropriate. It should be that way for everybody. Like
mhm.
I didn't have to I didn't have to send pictures of my dick to anybody to get bottom surgery. You know, like it was they were just like, oh, you would like it, okay.
I remember
Why
having
is
to send
top
a
surgery
picture of
different?
myself, in a in a crop top so they could make sure I wasn't too fat for surgery, though.
Really?
Yeah,
Wild,
I know. And
wild.
we did it we had it at the same time, so I'm surprised you
Yeah.
did.
Were we like the same weight?
I was probably a little bit heavier, but
Maybe.
yeah,
I was kinda thin then, wasn't I?
you were pretty
Yeah,
big. Yeah.
yeah. But still, but I wasn't that thin. But, like, I mean, when I got to Montreal, he just asked me to lift up my skirt and was like, "Oh, yeah, plenty of material there," and that was it. That was the extent of my approval procedure, apart from, uh, "Are you not crazy?" Other, stupid trans medical shit like that.
Yeah, no, I just
Uh,
remembered, like, the picture itself because I was renovating my bathroom at the time, and I had, like, that blue drywall looking
yeah,
stuff that's water resistant? I
yeah.
had that with my bathtub underneath it, and I took a picture of myself in, like, a pink skirt and a blue crop top so that I could show how much of a muffin top I had and whether or not I was gonna be eligible based on that.
That doesn't even make any sense. Like, it's supposed to be based off, like, your BMI, which is also incredibly inaccurate,
Right, right.
but that's bizarre. Uh, it should just be approved. Do you want it? Okay. Is it causing you distress not having this? No problem. And that should be available to everybody. Everybody should have access to gender affirming care.
Mhm.
Are you a cis girl and your boobs are too big? You just don't like it? You should be able to get free top surgery to reduce them. Like, are you uh 25 years old and you're like really distressed about how small your boobs are and you're a cis girl? Then you should be able to get free top surgery. It's $9,000. That's nothing for the government. It costs more to fill a pothole. Uh, anyways, right. I think the only other thing I wanted to talk about is the curb cut effect. Uh, in uh in brevity, which is just that one of the other videos that I watched was talking about the myth of normalcy. When the American government was designing new cutting edge jet fighters, they designed the cockpit and the controls and the seats for the average male.
Mm.
And that ended up killing like six average males because they found out that none of those people were actually average. And in fact, it turns out that nobody is actually average because averages are comprised of individuals. Um, so what they ended up having to do instead was they designed for the fifth and 95th percentile. So they wanted to make sure that the fifth percentile could access the controls and fly the plane safely, and that the 95th percentile could do the same.
Isn't there something
And
about that with cars too, where, like, they've designed cars for the average man, and that's why women are more likely to get
yeah,
injured or killed in car accidents?
correct. Because why? It's more expensive. And also, when they do testing, they also only test with male crash dummies. Only recently have they started using female crash dummies. But also, yes, the engineering schematics themselves, like every step of the way, is done with averageness in mind. That's also why we have almost no guidance for our hormones, because we are not average. We're not average women. Some of us are, but somewhat ironically, most of us are. but some of us aren't. And that, they're just like, "Whoa, we can't understand these numbers now." Um, I tell your doctor that your estrogen is 1,200, and half of them get like lightheaded and need their fainting couch, and the other half are like, "Oh, yeah, that seems appropriate." Uh, so, uh, fuck. But anyways, and this is like the curb cut effect applies to this as well. So like if we design our society to take care of people who are the most vulnerable, who need extra accessibility or whatever, then it ends up making life easier and better for people who don't directly need those things. Curb cuts for wheelchair users are also very helpful for the blind and for bicyclists and for skaters and for people who just have limited mobility but can still walk, for people with walkers, really drunk people. These are all good things. These are all benefits to our society, and it costs money for us to do it that way. But we've decided that even though it doesn't cost any money to cross the street, it is worthwhile for us to spend the extra money to put the curb cut in there.
Right.
Uh, and similarly, if we're talking about support for disabled people, monetary support for disabled people, um, applying that same 5 and 95% logic, uh, like all of the hoops that need to be jumped through, gone, means testing, gone, like maximum income limits, gone, the marriage limitations. One might call marriage equality for disabled people something that would be a benefit of that, because of course right now there isn't marriage equality for disabled people. Um, so on. Like literally every aspect of our society would be improved if instead of targeting either average people or, because of the capitalist influence, wealthy people. Um, our society we've vastly improved all around. Free public transportation, public bathrooms, green spaces, third spaces that are available for people to go to that don't cost money, so you can build local community, get to know your neighbors, and do helpful things, and just socialize, just be what we're supposed to be, which is a social creature. Who likes to be free.
Right. And when you think about how we get to that place where all of those things are becoming a reality and people with disabilities are being supported and we're addressing the issues caused by capitalism, what can our audience do to help?
The most important thing, I think, is to push our politicians left. There's so many things politically that need to be done, election reform, and so on. I feel like overall, voting as far left as you possibly can is the most important part. At this point, the NDP, my old favorite, is not far enough left. They, just like everything else, has been captured and corrupted by the capitalist influence, and now they too, though to a lesser extent, but still have been captured by um, uh, uh, the systems of capitalism that control our government. Thus we see them and their influence weakening. That's one of the reasons that they did so poorly in this election, is because they are a leftist party and they were out there talking about centrist shit, and none of us want to hear that. It's garbage politics. If I wanted to vote for a centrist, I would vote for a liberal, and I would never do that. um, so I think that's the most meaningful thing that we can do. Like I already live somewhere really leftist. I was very privileged to vote for the Communist Party, this recent election. Even though I didn't agree with 100% of their platform, 98% is pretty good, and they did better than one of those really annoying right wing parties, which was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty sick.
Hmm.
But yeah. I think that's the best thing. Uh, uh, we need them to believe that if they go further left, that we will vote for them. I don't know how to do that, because indeed these, like, the system is powerful. It is bigger than any individual. So, um, en masse, we need all of them like together, the whole party together, or a different party together needs to be like, this is not working. We need to unite in our message of being further to the left, of removing corporate power from our politics and from our daily lives, um, and of decoupling the money from yeah, like every fucking aspect of our lives, the profit motive from every aspect of our lives. That's just like that's at the core of all of it. There's so many different ways and to both to do it and that it affects us. That it's almost impossible to really to really talk about because it's everywhere, everywhere. Again, $8 to swim in a public pool today
Mhm.
that I used to go to for free, but the bureaucracy, of course, my pass expired and I have to renew it. I have to reprove that I am still disabled in order
Mm,
to get back into the pool for free.
right.
Uh,
Another hoop to jump through.
uh-huh, uh-huh. And all of these are, if I didn't have she's not even rich, she's just, uh, she just makes a little bit more money than me, but she was able to pay for it. If it wasn't for that, I would have had to walk away from a public service today. And you bet your ass I would have given her the fucking finger too, even though it's not her fault. She's just some worker.
Right.
She didn't set the policy. But the people who set the policies are never around, are they? Anyways, I didn't mean to rant about that. My apologies.
Oh, no, rants are always welcome. And thank you for taking the time to rant and to have a conversation
Mhm,
and to talk about so many subjects from disability to capitalism to pride and communism and how it all intersects with each other. And
mhm.
this has been a social justice podcast. Today I've been joined by Aphrodite Janeway.
Thanks again for having me.
You've been listening to a social justice podcast, an exploration of our world's social issues, brought to you by NES Design and Construction and hosted by Nicola Spurling on the traditional and unceded territories of the Kwikwetlem, Katzie, and Qayqayt peoples.